Imagine a world where powerful institutions control the financial destiny of nations. A world where leaders are merely puppets at the hands of international money powers. Well, my friends, this might not be a dystopian novel, but rather the reality we're living in today. You see, in today's video, we're going to be going over the roles that the Federal Reserve, the International Monetary Fund, and the World Bank play in creating a new world order. And by the end of today's video, you'll finally understand why the United States cares so much about Ukraine. And I'll tell you now, it's not as surface level as a business opportunity, as Jake Tran likes to tell you. There's actually a lot more to it. Let's begin with a question that we've all been wondering for decades now. What even is the role of the Federal Reserve, the International Monetary Fund, and the World Bank? Are they simply impartial financial institutions established for the benefit of global economic stability? Or could they possibly be part of an intricate system designed to shift wealth, influence world economies, and change the financial destiny of nations? To answer these questions, let's begin by taking a trip back to the 20th century, a time when the financial landscape was completely reshaped. Perhaps the creation of the Federal Reserve, the International Monetary Fund, and even the World Bank, seemingly independent events, were actually part of a grand financial puzzle. So look, we know that these institutions were founded with good intentions. The Federal Reserve was to prevent the banking panics. The IMF and the World Bank was to rebuild economies post-World War II. But what if their actual mechanics were not as noble as their stated goals? So imagine you're playing a game of chess, and unbeknownst to you, your opponent controls not only their moves, but also secretly manipulates your moves without you knowing it. You see, this is often how these financial institutions operate. On the surface, they implement policies that look good for your benefit, but beneath the hood are favoring certain groups. Everybody on YouTube already talks about the Great Reset, the World Economic Forum, but as you know, Julius Perceiving always has something new for you. You happen to find something interesting today, matter of fact. So, introducing the Council on Foreign Relations, the organization that is silently pulling the strings of America's global policy. Members of the CFR read like a who's who of the most influential people in America. Presidents, ambassadors, their advisors, cabinet members, Federal Reserve Board members, media heads, all of these people, regardless of their public affiliations, all gather under the CFR's banner to influence America's domestic and international policies. But what is the ultimate goal of the CFR? John Foster Dulles, one of CFR's founders, openly called for a world currency along with the leveling off of economic opportunities, even at the expense of U.S. sacrifice. Zbigniew Brzezinski, CFR member and advisor to Jimmy Carter, emphasized the need for American sacrifice in order to build a world monetary structure.
Phrases like monetary coordination mechanisms, modern world economic order, convergence of political values, and New World Order were identified as code words among insiders signaling the end of national sovereignty and the creation of world government. But the most alarming part of their strategy lies in the subtlety of its execution. Richard Gardner, a CFR member, promoted a Fabian strategy that is a gradual erosion of national sovereignty instead of an outright assault. This plan aims to shape New World Order piece by piece without alarming the masses.
This strategy manifests itself in several ways. For instance, Samuel Huntington, CFR member, argued for lowering the job expectations for college graduates, subtly implying lower economic prosperity for the educated masses. And Paul Volcker, former chairman of the Federal Reserve and CFR member, of course, bluntly stated a necessity of decline in standard of living for the average American.
David Rockefeller created the Trilateral Commission to facilitate the establishment of a new world order. The commission aims to unite countries like the United States, Mexico, Canada, Japan, and Western Europe into political and economic unions. Trade agreements such as European Union, the North American Free Trade Agreement, the Asia-Pacific Economic Corporate Agreement, and the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade are seen as tools in order to push this strategy. The European Union epitomizes this trend, taking dramatic and irreversible steps towards federal government structures, including a common currency, central bank, court, and parliament. In essence, what we see is a meticulously crafted strategy of power consolidation at a global level, a plan hidden in plain sight, presented to us as steps towards economic progress and globalization. This is a glimpse of the world we live in. A world shaped by hidden government, by strategies executed silently, and by games of power and control.
While Paul Volcker feels that the standard of living for the average American must decline, it doesn't mean that you have to be average. So, if you're looking for a way to create some extra side income or just be more productive with your time, I'd highly encourage you guys to check out the link in the description below for my group, Endurance. It's a group that I've operated since 2018, well before the creation of this channel. While the focus of the group revolves around reselling limited products in order to generate a profit through offering you guys monitors, software, bypasses, and exclusive information, we also offer other ways of creating income such as Amazon FBA or even helping you guys save money through free food exploits and even discounted offers. So if you're interested, I'd highly encourage you guys to check out the links below. And don't compare me to that fucker Tai Lopez. His product is absolute dog water, stuff that you can find for free online. Quite frankly, a lot of the content within Endurance or software, stuff that you can't find online. Tai Lopez, you even heard of a bypass link before? Didn't think so.
We've all heard of bailouts, haven't we? Large corporations or entire nations defaulting on their loans, leading to dramatic economic consequences, and the solution? A heroic rescue operation funded by taxes and inflation, the hidden tax, to save the day. But who does it really save? Imagine this. A bank makes a risky loan, knowing full well the potential for default. When the loan goes bad, instead of suffering the consequences, the bank is rescued by the government. Essentially, taxpayers cover the defaulted loans, and interest payments continue flowing to the banks. But who really pays the price? On an international scale, the game gets even more interesting. Here, the pawns are not banks, but countries, and the game board is the global economy. Loans are made by institutions like the IMF and the World Bank, using money mostly from the wealthy industrialized nations. When those loans can't be repaid, once again, the industrialized nation's taxpayers foot the bill. The money disappears without making a dent in the economic picture of the borrowing nation. And so now you know. When you pay the hidden tax called inflation, it isn't just for the United States. Congress passed the Monetary Control Act of 1980, authorizing the Federal Reserve to monetize foreign debt too. This expanded the Federal Reserve's power, allowing it to create money not just for U.S. government, but for any government worldwide. That's right, you're footing the bill through a hidden tax, inflation, for not just the United States, but other countries that have nothing to do with your interest as well, like when Mexico announced that it could not pay its $85 billion debt, forcing the Fed to coordinate an IMF loan to Mexico, which didn't even resolve the f***ing problem anyway. But wait, there's more. The International Monetary Fund and the World Bank aren't just playing a short-term game. You see, they're investing in the long haul. And what's the end game again? A world central bank issuing a world fiat currency. Now, that's a monopoly game of epic proportions. Imagine a global economy regulated by a single institution with the power to affect lives of people across the world with a mere policy change. The sovereignty of individual nations gradually getting blurred, and this isn't just a conspiracy theory, it's happening right in front of our eyes, one step at a time. Countries with strong economies aren't likely to simply surrender their sovereignty, of course, but when their economies are drained, with their citizens waiting in bread lines, their independence will be a small price to pay for an international aid. Meanwhile, less developed nations, controlled by power-hungry leaders, get used to the taste of easy money, becoming comfortable cogs in this global machine. A massive transfer of wealth from the developed to the less developed nations is taking place under the guise of loans. And when the nations can't repay the loans, they lose their independence. We see the inclusion of big players like China and the former Soviet bloc into the realm of the IMF and World Bank. This move is not random. It's the beginning of the endgame. In a surprisingly short span of time, these nations have become the biggest borrowers. And yes, they're already defaulting on their repayments. Now, you may be wondering, why isn't this in the news? Why are we not being informed about the massive economic shift? And it's simple. Because it's all part of the plan. The grand scheme that the world leaders are adhering to is not for public consumption. If their fellow citizens knew what they were really doing, they would be thrown out of office and possibly even face treason charges. The leaders of the industrialized nations are not stupid. They're following a higher loyalty and a larger plan.
It's not about rescuing economies or aiding less developed nations. It's about controlling those nations and creating a new world order. In the backdrop of our narrative today, current events, such as the Ukraine and Russia conflict, seem to take on a new light. They seem to echo the themes that we've explored today. The United States, in line with its role on the global stage, has extended considerable financial aid to Ukraine.
This situation is eerily reminiscent of what we've talked about thus far. Is it not familiar? A nation seemingly at the mercy of a more powerful neighbor, bolstered by aid from Western powers. But what is the purpose of this aid? As we've learned, intentions can often be layered and far from straightforward. Just as the aid to Eastern European governments during the Cold War era was intended to improve the economy, better people's lives, and wean these countries off communism, we see a similar rhetoric in play now. The aid to Ukraine is ostensibly to help them protect their sovereignty, to improve their economy, and save the lives of the Ukrainian people. However, our exploration of past events urges us to ask critical questions. Will this aid truly go to the intended purposes, or will it, like in the past, potentially end up solidifying the control of certain interest groups, indirectly influencing regional power dynamics? Could this be another instance of the bailout game on an international stage? To me, the answer is obvious, but I'll leave it open-ended.
However, this plan of globalization is not merely economic, as plenty of other YouTubers will tell you. Rather, it's a comprehensive political and financial strategy aimed at unifying world governance under the umbrella of the United Nations.
If you found this interesting, I'd suggest subscribing and enabling post notifications for more content like this. You could also check out The Creature from Jekyll Island by G. Edward Griffin with the link in the description if you want to learn more about today's topic. Lastly, feel free to check out my group Endurance if you're looking for a profitable hobby. Leave a comment if you want to share some notions.
My friends, today we've traversed through a very complex saga of financial and political power plays. We've explored the mechanisms within the global chessboard. From the shadows of the Federal Reserve, the IMF, the World Bank, and even the CFR, we've unraveled potential strands of a new world order. And even world events now seem to take on a new light, such as the Russia and Ukraine conflict, illustrating potential dance towards convergence of world governance.